let's look at constructor overloading. We have already seen what is function overloading using the same name, same function name with different arguments. Okay, so depending on the type of the arguments and the number of the arguments, the compiler decides which particular function to be called. Similarly, in case of constructors also we can do overloading. Find the simple interest. Let's start off hash include iostream.h hash include conio.h and then class interest. Okay, class interest. In this we will have float, let's say principal amount, rate of interest, time, and the simple interest, the actual interest amount. We will have the various, we usually start off with the constructor itself. So one is the default constructor. Now if we are going to do overloading, then it's essential that we define the default constructor as well. The constructor name will be the same as class name. Okay, and so we are giving a blank implement. Okay, so this is our default implementation, default constructor, and now we require to overload this. So we give the same name, but this time we give it some arguments. So float x, float y. Now actually let's give it p, float r, float time. Okay, so these are the arguments. Okay, so within the implementation, what do? We say p equal to x. Now, okay, let's take it like this. Principal is equal to p, rate is equal to r, time is equal to t, simple interest is equal to 0. Okay, so I have created an overloaded constructor. Okay, so that completes our. Okay, and another thing is that we would like to calculate. So we need to have another function which will not return anything, but it will compute and display. Compute SI. Cout simple interest is, and we just put the formula, principal rate into time divided by 100, right? And then end. Okay, so that's all that is there in compute SI, and this is the end of the class specification. Now void main, and here we'll keep it very simple. So we will say interest SI 1, right, and SI 2, but to this we will send 10,000.0 because it has to be float, 12.0 and 2.0. Okay, and then SI2 dot compute SI. Okay, and SI1 dot compute SI Okay, so we will call the SI, compute SI of both the objects. And let's run. Okay, there is an extra. Now let's run this. Undefined symbol. Okay, spelling mistake. Principal. Okay, now in this, what was the, it was not waiting. Okay, so let's not here, get ch. Now let's run it. Okay, it's giving it in, okay, let's clear the screen as well. Okay, simple interest is 2400, that is perfectly fine. In the first case, it is giving you junk, it is giving us junk. So, remember, ideally, we should initialize it to some appropriate values. So, principal equal to 0, rate is equal to 0, time equal to 0, and simple interest is equal to 0. Simple interest, why do we have? Why do we require? Because we are not actually storing anything in it. Here we are directly calculating it and displaying it as part of Cout itself. Okay, so we really don't require this. Okay. Okay. So which means we don't need to initialize it to 0. Here also we don't need to initialize it to 0. Now let's run it. Okay, so simple interest is 0 and simple interest, okay, we don't know for what. Okay, in this case, Cout using default constructor. Okay, and now Cout using overloaded constructor. Now let's run this. Right, using default constructor, that colon is not really required. We can put this one, full stop. Okay, now let's run this. Simple interest. Okay, we don't require the full stop as well. And here also. Okay, simple interest is 0. Yes. So here, what is happening here? This is the class name. We are creating an object. We are not passing any arguments to the constructor, because since I'm just saying interest SI1 object is going to get created and the default constructor is going to get called, which is going to initialize everything to 0. Whereas in this case, when I'm creating the second object, SI2, these 3 arguments are being passed and these will be used to initialize the variables. So naturally, when I call the compute SI on the first object, everything is 0, so interest will also be 0. In this case, they have some values and the appropriate simple interest will be calculated and displayed. Okay, so let's save this. Source SI, simple interest, overloaded constructor. Window close, file quit.